Hello everybody and happy week 10. This week we have the pleasure of detailing the respiratory system or talking about how the pH is controlled by the alveoli and the gas exchange process. So this week I chose option 2 to describe in detail the anatomy of the respiratory system, starting with the nose and ending with the alveoli. So to start off here on our little visual aid, we have the nose right here. This is the entry point of air when we breathe. The nose also internally contains the nasal cavity. It's divided by the nasal septum, which separates it into the right and the left side. The purpose of the nose is to warm, cleanse, and humidify the air that we're breathing in, as well as detecting odor and amplifying our voice. So as air moves through our nose, it goes into the nasal cavity, which I've indicated there in pink. The nasal cavity contains nasal conchae, which are tissue folds that contain blood vessels for warming the air, and mucus, which moistens the air. Along with the nasal conchae, it also has nasal mediatuses, which separate the conchae inside. So you have the superior, the middle, and the inferior for both sides. Moving on then to the blue highlighted portion, this is the pharynx. The pharynx is responsible for carrying air from the nasal cavity to the larynx. It also contains tonsils, which provide protection, and there are 3 parts of the pharynx. So you have the nasopharynx, which is the top part here, and that's a passageway for air. As you can see, it's not really meeting with the throat here just yet. So that brings us to the next part, the oropharynx, which is the passageway for air and food. That's right here in the middle. And then you have the laryngopharynx, which is also a passageway for air and food right here. Moving on then, highlighted in green, is the larynx, this whole section right here. The larynx is also known as the voice box. It carries air to the trachea from the pharynx. It's responsible for producing sound, and it also prevents food from entering the trachea, the part that leads to the lungs. So there are a couple different parts for our larynx. We have the glottis, which is the airway surrounded by the larynx, the vestibular folds that are responsible for preventing food from going to the trachea. So I kind of just indicated that with a little lip here in that second part. Then we have the vocal cords, which are muscles that produce sound, and a bunch of cartilages that help to support the larynx. There are 3 different ones. So we have the epiglottis, which is the uppermost cartilage. I kind of indicated that right here. Then the middle cartilage is known as the thyroid cartilage right here, and that is responsible for shielding the throat and offers protection. It's also known as has another name as the Adam's apple. And then we have the cricoid cartilage, which is the bottom cartilage right here, and that is responsible for physically connecting the larynx to the trachea. Moving on then to the trachea, also known as the windpipe. It provides a physical connection to the bronchial tree. It's also a rigid tube with C-shaped rings, so you can see that I indicated that by making little lines all down the trachea. And it'll also split in 2. The right and left down here, you can see it shows it goes to the right lung and to the left lung. So moving on then from the trachea, we have the bronchial tree. The bronchial tree is a network of air tubes that carries air into the lungs and the deep tissues of the lungs. So there are 3 main branches that we looked at in our lecture. We have the main branches right here, which I indicated in pink on both sides. This is the left and right bronchi. They're the largest, and they carry air in and out of the lungs. Next is the lobar bronchi, which branch from the main bronchi to each lobe. So on the right lung here, you can see that I highlighted them in blue. It shows it going to the superior lobe, the middle lobe, and the inferior lobe. And then in the left lung, it shows just the superior lobe and the inferior lobe, because there are only 2. Next, after that, we have smaller bronchi, which are called segmental bronchi, and these branch off the lobar bronchi and are supported with hyaline cartilage. within the segmental bronchi, it kind of starts to get into some more micro level anatomical structures, and so I had a hard time showing that, but I did kind of make these a little bit longer to show the bronchioles, because those are continuous. They're continuous off the segmental bronchi. They just don't have support from cartilage. And then off of the bronchioles, you have the terminal bronchioles, and this is the last branch within the lungs that are solely responsible for air passage. From the terminal bronchioles, you have the respiratory bronchioles, which contain no smooth muscle or cilia, and along the respiratory bronchioles, we start to see alveoli, and then at the end of the respiratory bronchioles, we see alveolar ducts, which are air sacs. So this is where the gas exchange takes place between the alveoli and the deoxygenated blood from the heart. So when deoxygenated blood flows from our heart into our lungs, that O2 that we're breathing in goes into our bloodstream, out to our limbs, and then the hemoglobin that is in our blood is able to pick up both O2 and CO2 and carry it back into our lungs, where you see that gas exchange happen, where the CO2 is exchanged for O2, and then the process repeats itself. I hope that you guys enjoyed my video and have a great rest of your week. Thanks so much for watching.